Good evening and welcome to the November 9th, 2021 City Council Finance Committee. Committee members present, myself, Councilor Di Natale, Councilors Boschman, Hughes, Walsh. And we will begin with an announcement regarding recording of public meetings. I ask anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating their name and address. Seeing none. Public forum. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address the committee, they may do so at this time. You may speak on any item appearing on the agenda for not more than 2 minutes. Please stand and state your name and address and the item on which you wish to speak. And I will just say that with regards to this committee, usually I allow public comment when the specific matter is taken up. But I don't see anybody standing up to speak, so I will move on to the agenda. 18921, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Community-Oriented Policing Services COPS Program grant in the approximate amount of $71,227 for the purpose of said grant, which is to advance the practice of community policing and law enforcement. Chief Martineau.
Good evening, councilors. First of all, I'd like to start off. The Fitchburg Police Department is grateful to have been awarded these 2 grants before you this evening. Both of these grants were highly competitive, and once again, our team at the police department put together outstanding applications, resulting in success of both of these grants. The first grant before you tonight is issued out of the COPS office, which will provide the Fitchburg Police Department the opportunity to achieve the prestigious status of law enforcement accreditation. Law enforcement accreditation is the gold standard in policing. It's one of the best measures of a police department's compliance with professional law enforcement standards. These specific funds will be used in the following manner. First of all, to cover expenses associated with professional consulting as it relates to certification and accreditation in law enforcement. Secondly, the purchase of analytical performance management software. This software program will allow us to identify a wide range of activities and practices, including compliance with accreditation standards. And lastly, it will cover personal and overtime costs for work associated with the accreditation process. This is something we've been trying to move forward to for the past many years, and I know Council Walsh has an understanding of what accreditation status means for a community. So if this is something we can achieve in the next 18 to 24 months, that is a big leap for the City of Fitchburg Police Department.
Any questions for the chief?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept 18921. See no objection. I will take this as unanimous consent for approval. Moving on to 19021, order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs grant in the approximate amount of $24,403 for the purpose of said grant, which is to support community policing efforts and update equipment needs. Chief Martineau.
Thank you. Once again, this was another highly competitive federal grant that we were successful in getting again this year. The JAG grant usually comes around every 3 years, and we're very fortunate to get it. It's helped us supplement officers in overtime issues as it's related to community events. We utilize this funding to pay for hotspot patrols. We use this funding to make sure that we have proper resources at our block party, at our Civic Day events. So we rely heavily on this JAG grant to help supplement our overtime budget. But also out of this grant, this time, we're going to be purchasing brand new badges and brand new IDs for all 81 police officers. The purpose behind the purchase of these new badges and the new ID numbers, it's going to fall in standards with the new police officer standard training, which resulted out of the police reform legislation last year. So there's going to be very specific ID numbers associated with each police officer. So these funds will help us purchase 81 hat badges and 81 shirt badges as well. And lastly, I'm going to be taking some of these funds, if approved, to purchase new reflective gear for all of our police officers, whether they're working a police detail or if they're working downtown at the block party. The high visibility traffic vests are extremely important to identify and recognize law enforcement in large crowds. So this $24,000, it's not a lot of money, but we spend it wisely and we spend it carefully, and we're aware that this is not taxpayer money, so we make sure that it's spent in a proper fashion.
Make a motion, we accept, oh, should get a question.
Can I just comment?
I have a motion made and seconded to, was there a second?
I wanted to make a comment.
Okay, so
No, I would,
A second
that's okay, I told her, I would stop anyway, so she could
you
talk.
removed your motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Walsh.
I just wanted to thank the chief for both of these, the accreditation and the addition to the post system. These are incredible. You know, this is the way we keep our police department current, and I just want to thank him. This is $100,000 of money that's not coming out of the city budget and keeping the department at the top form. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly thank Christy Fisher once again, who is the author of the majority of our grants, and she is a huge asset for our police department, and I always like to bring her credit when credit is due. So, thank
I
you.
make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve 190-21. President Zarella has joined the committee meeting. If I see no objection to the approval, I will take this under unanimous consent. It is approved. Thank you. 191-21, in order that there be and hereby is transferred from within the sum of $20,000 to be transferred from reserve for other municipal purposes, capital expenses, and credited to police capital expenditures, building renovation, for the purpose of safeguarding the entrance to the police station. Chief Martineau.
Thank you. I hope this is the first of many discussions as it relates to the infrastructure of 20 Elm Street. About a month ago, my custodian brought to my attention that there was bricks and concrete scattered across the walkway leading into the building, and he brought it right to my attention, and it was obvious that there was significant amount of decay coming off the side of the building, off the concrete structure. And we immediately took action. We reached out to a local vendor, and we safeguarded all the entrances going into the police department. Our station's open 24/7, and it's mandatory and very important that we provide safe passage to anybody that needs police services. And if you drive by the police station now, you're going to see significant amount of staging set up on both sides of the building. That staging is being rented as we speak. I have a rental agreement with a local vendor. We're paying monthly on that. This $20,000 will take me through the rest of this fiscal year on renting that equipment and safeguarding passage to the police department. However, you know, my building, our building is 36 years old, and like any 36-year-old house, it needs significant work. 36 years ago, it cost $6 million to build that station. To duplicate it today is about $38 million. So, like I started off, I hope this is the beginning of future discussions with the council and this administration that the police department is in need of some infrastructure, but more importantly, we safeguarded passage to anybody coming in and out, and that is the purpose of this $20,000 line item.
Chief, you said this is for just the rental for the staging?
It is.
So was there work done?
Let me reiterate on that. It's for the staging, the monthly rental staging, but we hired a vendor to come in, safeguard, install the staging, pull the permits to put up the staging. So once we recognized that the defective part of the building coming down, we safeguarded it. So the $20,000 will cover the vendor who came out, installed it, and now we're renting the staging on a monthly basis until,
So this is a temporary measure right now.
most certainly is.
So we will definitely need to do a full-scale repair of this matter, correct?
Most certainly.
Do we have any idea what that costs?
Well, I'm working closely with our facilities director. We're in the process, collaborating between myself and Russ. We're putting out, hopefully, an RFP in the near future, because quite frankly, Councilor, the outside is just the beginning of what is needed in a 36-year-old building. I've identified their needs, and hopefully at some point in the near future, we can really, you know, bring your public safety building up to where it should be in today's.
Sounds like it's priority number one, though, right now, because it's already in failure.
I'm a little biased, but yes, it's priority, yeah. I have some bias
I
here.
would hope we have the auditor here, and I know the mayor either watches this meeting or he'll get a phone call from me tomorrow about this being a prime usage of upcoming certified free cash, I would hope, for a capital investment. Especially now that we've heard this, I personally will say I better see something before the end of the year. Or I'm going to remind everybody again, and I'm looking at the auditor while I say that.
I can assure you, Counselor, the conversations have been ongoing.
Yeah.
I visit our facility director weekly. He will attest to that. This is priority one for me, because safe passage in and out of your public safety facility is paramount.
But you said this is for through the end of the year. So are you talking June of 2022 or December?
The fiscal year. That $20,000 will cover me to rent that equipment and provide safe passage between now and July 1st of 2022.
But we may not need to use all this money if we fix this thing before that point,
Well,
correct?
the problem we're going to run into, and you're going to hear that from the facilities director, is winter's fast approaching. How much work you can actually do on a brick and mortar structure, on concrete structure, it's very limited. So like everything in government, we'll take it one step at a time. But this is a great opportunity. Here I am in front of the Finance Committee telling you, we got significant needs and the conversations need to happen and continue over the next 12 to 14 months.
Like I said, I will expect to see some type of free cash request to remedy this situation before the fiscal year is over. The sooner the better. That's just my 2 cents.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions, Council Boschman?
You know what I have? I'll tell you, councilors, I have a hard time. The building's only 35 years old, and according to the chief, it needs hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million. 35 years old. We get buildings around the city of Fitchburg that are 100 years old, and they're still standing, and people haven't done anything to it. I just think it's a shame that government gets involved in too many things, and there's shortcuts taken. And now we got to pay more money for a building to maintain a building that's only 35 or 36 years old. I have a hard time with that. I really do.
As we spoke today, we had no control over the
I know.
quality of construction 36 years ago. We can't look backwards 36 years. We got to look at the structure today and figure a path forward.
Okay, I'll look for that pat.
Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to approve. Speaking on the motion, did you overhear? Okay. President Zarella.
Thank you. I just want to note, or it feels like the millionth time at this point, that much of what this council has been working on, and the mayoral administration since I've been on the council, has been precisely the consequences of cost-cutting measures that were taken decades ago and that we're now seeing the effects of. So I would agree with my colleague that we should be doing things right the first time so that they last. But like the chief says, we can't go backwards. We can only work with the situation we're in now. And the situation we're in now is we have a police building that is unsafe for visitors, or I'm sorry, that has been made safe for visitors, but by using temporary equipment, and therefore needs a permanent fix. So I am in support of this appropriation and will be in support of future appropriations to fix this long term and to do it in a way that maximizes the useful life going forward.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the order. Seeing no objection, I will take this under unanimous consent for approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
19221, in order that the sum of $28,000 be appropriated, same to be credited to homelessness outreach services and charged against the CDBG year 47. Mr. Skorsky.
Good evening, councilors. And actually, before I get started on that item, I just wanted to note one thing. I was over at City Hall and had a number of constituents who had walked over to City Hall confused as to which building was the location for the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. So just in the, I don't know if you already mentioned that, but the ZBA hearing is in the 3rd floor of City Hall, just in case there's anyone here who's still interested. Just wanted to get that out there. But the topic that I'm speaking in front of you this evening, 19221, is related to CDBG, our year 47 allocation. If you recall, when the council approved year 47 in the previous year, we had homelessness outreach services that were pulled at the request of the applicant from the final allocation that was approved by the council. That was in the amount of $28,000. And I think we recognized at that time that we still had a severe need for homelessness outreach services, but we didn't know quite which organization would be there equipped to handle the tasks. So in partnership with our health department over the last few months, we've been working with them to develop a strategy on how to deploy those funds, and we're going to be working within their existing coordinator, Keith Barnaby, who's been working as a grant-funded part-time position for the last few months to help enhance their existing efforts. And in this work, under the leadership of Steve Curry and Sue Christensen, the substance abuse coordinator, they will be providing homelessness outreach on the ground to folks that need it, connecting them with services that they need, whether it's a shower, job services, any substance abuse counseling, or any of the resources that one might need. So this is taking funds from that year that we essentially set aside to go towards that purpose.
Who did you say it's going to, Marcus? Could you repeat, who did you say it was going to? Who's working with you on it?
It's going to the Department of Health, and Keith Barnaby is the name of the outreach worker.
Keep on it. Is he from our father's house?
He's not.
He's not.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the order. Any questions on the motion? There is no objection. I'll take
Can I ask one question?
Council Boschman.
Can we get a report on how they're doing when they're done with this $28,000, please?
I will withdraw my motion if there's
Oh,
no
I'm
objection.
sorry. Yep, I'm sorry. That's right. There can be no questions once a motion has been made and seconded to the member. But Councilor Zarella has withdrew his motion, so
Thank you, Council, I appreciate that. Can we get a report of how they're doing? Because I remember a few years ago, I went around with Kevin, the one that used to be at our father's house, and we found very little homeless people at that time, because they were taking a survey one night. It was me, Tom Donnelly, Michael Donnelly, Kevin, and some other people, and we found very little. I'd like to know exactly what's going on and how things are doing in Fitchburg.
I'd be happy to talk with them about providing that, and certainly our next round of CDBG funding is coming right down the pipeline, and I'm sure they'll be submitting, and we'll include that in the reports. I haven't done any formal inventories or surveys on the ground, but I can tell you just anecdotally, there is definitely a need. We've got a housing crisis, we have a substance abuse crisis, and those two things are intersecting right now, and there's certainly a need for the services, and we've heard certainly good reports anecdotally with what's happening so far, but I think something more formal like a report would certainly be appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Zarella.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out, and this is a misconception that I had for many, many, many years until I had a conversation with someone that enlightened me. Not all homeless people are living on the street or under bridges or anything. There are homeless people living out of their cars. There are homeless people living in private buildings that allow them to stay for the night. So a count of how many people are on the street isn't necessarily representative of how many homeless people we have in the city. It's just how many couldn't find an indoor shelter for that night.
Councilor Hughes.
Also, just to add to what Councilor Zarella said, I think one thing they were using in the school department, if families were doubling up, that family that was not technically living there but living with a relative was deemed homeless as well. So to echo that, so that might add to the numbers as well. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. President. I just want to make it clear, I'm not against homelessness. I just like to know where we stand and how many people are we trying to help. Maybe this is a lot bigger than the city of Fitchburg. They can't handle it. You know what I'm saying?
Typically, when we get the CDBG package, your office does a good job of explaining what the criteria is for that money that's going to. And typically, it was to our father's house, and we got that kind of a detail of how many it serves. In this instance, this is kind of a new venture with the Department of Public Health, so it would be good to know a little more detail as the program goes on, what exact services are being provided that benefit those that are homeless in the city of Fitchburg. The more detailed that we're usually accustomed to getting with the usual the organization we did business with, but, now with this new venture, just to get an update on that.
Understood, and it'll certainly be part of that year 48 package.
Thank you.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 19221. I will take this under the unanimous consent if there are no objections. Seeing none, it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
19321. Order that there be and hereby is transferred from within the sum of $100,000 to be transferred from reserve for other municipal purposes, capital replacement, capital expenses, and credited to capital projects Longsjo School window replacement for the purpose of paying costs for the replacement of windows at the Arthur M. Longsjo Middle School, including a feasibility study and all other costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the city of Fitchburg may be eligible for a grant from the MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of Fitchburg Public Schools. The city of Fitchburg acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any cost the city incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the city. Finance Director for the district, Mr. Shalfo.
Good evening, councilors, and thank you. We're very excited to say that we have been accepted into the accelerated repair program through MSBA for new windows at Longsjo Middle School. This $100,000 is for the feasibility and schematic design phases of this project. We'll be coming back later on this winter when we have the total scope and budget for the total project with more information.
So, Mr. Shalfo, this is for, and this is required under MSBA rules, right, that we have to spend this money to do these studies?
That is correct.
Okay, and is the goal, or is it obviously the intent that we're going to get 80% coverage from them for whatever the cost is? They've accepted us into the program?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So we will be on the hook for the 20%. And this is a full-scale replacement of all the windows at that school?
Oh, yes, that's the plan. Once the designers look at it and the engineers do their job, they'll be able to give us a better picture of what the entire scope of the project
Do
will
we
be.
have any idea if those windows are original to the building, right?
They're not original. I
They're
believe
not.
they're 1973 is when they were replaced.
Okay, so they're about 50 years old. Okay.
And many don't, they're not operable.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is long overdue. Councilor Hughes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shalfo, is there a timeline in terms of from the start of feasibility to the time of completion, or starting on a project? Is there some sort of a timeline?
So there's an MSBA vote on February 28th, which this work will need to be completed by. We're submitting, this will be the last piece that we'll submit to them. There was a deadline of January 28th. We're well within that at this point. So as far as moving forward with the entire project, I'm not sure if that will take place in next year. Still, there's lots going on right now with when this RFP would go out, when the bids would be available, and then dealing with the supply chain shortages as well, which I'm sure will have some impact on the overall project.
Thank you.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you just explain a little bit about, there are certain things that the MSBA will fund, and there are certain things that they will not. And this is one of those things that they will.
Yes, so for the accelerated repair, it's roofs, boilers, and windows. We had applied for both boilers and windows for Longsjo Middle School. Because of the projects that came in this year, they tend to adjust the years for certain items, and for this year, they extended the boiler dates to 30 years. Originally, I believe it was 25. So we did not qualify for boilers under this project, but we did qualify for the windows, and that's an 80% reimbursement for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Shalfo.
And so, just for the public's edification, MSBA, they don't have to do this, right?
Correct.
I mean, they must have every district in the state begging for money.
Yes, I believe this
So-
year there were over 50 applications, and 29 were accepted, and we were one of those.
So barely 50% of applications were accepted, so we're one of the lucky ones. Okay. And you said that the deadline for providing them with this information is the 28th of January?
Correct.
And then after that, they've got to review it, they've got to, so we're talking, it's not going to get done, hopefully it will get done next year, but it may not because of the bureaucratic process that MSBA employs of and then with the bids and everything.
Correct.
But the funding would be secured.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's just a question of timing at that point?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Counsel Zarella.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify my understanding of this, in case any members of the public have questions on it, is this this $100,000 that we're appropriating tonight, is this anticipated to be our 20% share and then we may have to appropriate more if MSBA doesn't come through? Or is this the full cost, and if MSBA does come through, we'll get some of this back?
So this will be the cost just for the feasibility and schematic design. Then we'll
Gotcha.
go for the full budget, scope and budget, and then this will actually become part of the total budget for that 80% reimbursement. So this is just a preliminary piece to it. Then once it's accepted, they'll assign an OPM, an owner's project manager, and we'll get into that next phase.
Excellent, thank you.
So we'll be reimbursed $80,000. So it'll be a $20,000 cost for the study. And just like the Crocker Elementary rebuild, I believe we took $1 million of free cash 3 or 4 years ago to do a feasibility study and schematic design, and I believe that was also part of their OPM package that we're getting 80% reimbursement for, if I recall. So, and you said, Counselor, if, it's not if, it's a definite. They've accepted us into the program, so we've made it through the bureaucratic hurdle to get into the gate, so they can't kick, well, I guess maybe they could kick us out, I don't know, but I hope not.
I hope not.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We will be back for that, once we know what the total budget is for this, we'll be back.
Thank you to the chair and the director for the explanation.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 19321. If there's no objections, I will take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
19421, last item, that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources Green Communities Division Grant Program and the approximate amount of $151,283 for the purpose of said grant, which is to implement a number of energy-saving programs across the city. Mr. Carlstead.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for hearing this. Green Communities is a program the state allocates a certain amount of funding to the cities and towns who are members. We've been a member since 2017, and in that time, the program has given us the ability to reduce our energy burden by 2.4% over that time. It's a small amount of money you get every year, so you hit the small projects, but you do get long-term gains, and you do get replacement of defective or outdated equipment. So in this application, we have basically 3 programs we're looking at. One of them is the steam trap surveys for the schools. It's not glamorous, but it needs to be done, and it will help save energy, and it will help with our maintenance people in addressing concerns. Then there's a building maintenance system for one of the schools, which will allow us to control. It will allow more efficiencies. It will also allow us to see what's happening in the school when no one's there. I.e. water leaks, which is a big thing, freeze problems, it will be alerted to us. And that's the first one that we're doing, and we'll keep rolling those out over the coming years. And then we're doing some work on the walk-in coolers because they are huge energy users. So we're replacing motors, we're putting updated controls, fixing any problems with them. So I don't have the exact savings, it's in the literature I gave you, but the payback is less than 10 years for everything we're putting in. And we stretch this out as a 20-year forward look on all the projects.
Scott said, so there's 3 major efforts we're undertaking on this? And
Yes, we're focusing on the schools this
in all
year.
the schools, okay?
There's one small project for the fire department to replace some pumps. Next year, we're going to focus on all city buildings for all of the green community money.
And you said that the walk-in coolers, do you know what schools that is, or is it all of them?
I could go through, it's not listed, it's high school,
Yep.
Rango,
it's
Yeah,
not,
it's in the literature.
it's in everything
Yeah,
we
okay.
gave you.
Lounge.
So I'm pleased to see that we're attacking some of the, I was interested in hearing you talk about the systems that we're putting in to identify leaks and frozen pipes, as we all know about the Crocker Elementary
Yeah, I just
issue.
I like to.
And I think even Long Show had an issue in their library years ago with a frozen,
Right,
so
right.
that would be a welcome addition.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that this position was created, evidently. So when you put a BMS in, you put in target points where you can measure temperatures, humidity, water, fluids, any issue you want to look at, you can put and have a sensor, and everything can go right to your phone. So you get instant communication. If you have a problem, like one evening in this building, the HVAC wasn't working, the mayor called me up, I turned the HVAC on for my house. That kind of serviceability, we can really tighten up operating hours and save energy and get real tracking on what we're spending energy-wise moving forward.
Not even just saving us on energy, but savings on a possibly full-scale problem. That,
We are looking at that. We're just in the early stages of talking to people.
yep.
But that's something you will be hearing about, in addition to all the other projects that, we're scratching the surface on.
But it's fair to say that these systems we're going to put in with leaks or what have you are, in a way, preventative maintenance, in that we find the problem quickly or we diagnose it before it gets to a point where it's like, oh, great, we have to replace the whole thing.
Yeah. Clearly, we're at the point where we're still firefighting.
Yep.
But we want to be at the PM, we want to be a PM town, not a firefighting town. So I think we've stopped most of the firefighting. There's a couple of things that are going to be coming in front of you: police station, senior center, mausoleum, a couple of the buildings around town. But otherwise, things are turning the corner.
Thank you. And that's a testament to the position that we brought on for you and your efforts, and that's what I'd like to see as a member of the council, is that, the investment we made in your position, these are the kinds of things I want to see and hear. It's all about preventing problems ahead of time and being proactive instead of reactive. So, thank you. Council Boschman.
Question, I read this, your report. I see you talked about Wrangell, that's in my school district. Are you guys going to do anything about the heat problem up there at the Wrangell school? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You
I think
can't
that
control
falls
the
under the
heat.
steam trap survey, because when the steam traps fail, it prevents the steam from getting to the heating devices, the radiators, or what you have to heat the building. So once these steam traps are identified and replaced or repaired, the heating will be normalized in the building to its design point, whichever year it was built.
The only reason why I asked that question, I was up there a couple of years ago with Pete Stevens, and it was the mid of winter, and I mean, it was cold. And inside the school, I asked him a question. I says, how does the students learn when the temperature is 75 and 80 degrees in the classroom, and you got the windows open and you got fans blowing? And I says, how can you learn? And, I know it's an old school, Wrangell, but I didn't see you mention that in your report about Wrangell heating problems.
Now, if that's is that one of the schools with the steam trap survey? I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, it's not one of them.
But that, I wasn't aware of that. I'll talk to Joe Richardson about that, and we'll put that on my list.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 19421. Seeing no questions or objections, I'll take this under unanimous consent. It is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.